The rain hammered against the warehouse windows as Amara pressed her back against the cold metal wall, her heart threatening to burst from her chest. She could hear them, heavy boots on concrete, voices shouting in Korean. This wasn't how her life was supposed to go. 3 months ago, she was a graphic designer in Atlanta, living her quiet, predictable life. Now she was hiding in a Seoul warehouse, running from men who wanted her dead. It all started with a photography project. Amara had come to South Korea on a work visa, excited to document the city's underground art scene. She had her camera, her dreams, and 6 months to make something of herself. What she didn't expect was to photograph the wrong alley at the wrong time. The night she met Min-Jun, she was capturing graffiti in Itaewon when gunshots shattered the silence. She ducked behind a dumpster, camera clutched to her chest, watching through her viewfinder as men in black suits dragged a body into a black van. Her finger had pressed the shutter on instinct. Click, click, click. Then he appeared, tall, sharp-featured, with eyes like black ice. Min-Jun had found her crouched in the shadows, terror written across her face. Instead of killing her, he'd done something worse. He'd smiled. "You're either very brave or very stupid," he'd said in perfect English, extending his hand to pull her up. "I'm Kang Min-Jun and you just became my problem." That was 3 months ago. 3 months of being drawn into a world she didn't understand. Min-Jun was the heir to the Kang family, one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Seoul. He dealt in weapons, information, and fear. He should have terrified her. Sometimes he did. But somewhere between the late-night conversations in his penthouse and the way he looked at her like she was the only real thing in his manufactured world, Amara had fallen. She'd fallen hard. Now his enemies knew about her. The photographs she'd taken that night had somehow leaked, and rival gangs wanted them, and her dead. Min-Jun had hidden her in this warehouse while he handled things, which she'd learned was code for violence she didn't want to imagine. The door burst open. Amara's breath caught, but it was Min-Jun, blood spattered across his white shirt, gun in hand. Behind him, his men secured the perimeter. "Are you hurt?" His hands were on her face, checking for injuries with a gentleness that contradicted the murder she knew he'd just committed. "I'm fine. Min-Jun, this is insane. I can't keep." "You can't leave." His jaw tightened. "They'll kill you the moment you step outside my protection." "So what am I? Your prisoner." Tears stung her eyes, frustration and fear mixing into something explosive. "You're mine." The words came out raw, possessive. "And I protect what's mine." Amara wanted to slap him. She wanted to run. But most terrifying of all, she wanted to stay. Because despite everything, the danger, the lies, the blood on his hands, she loved him. This cold, dangerous man who looked at her like she was salvation and damnation wrapped in brown skin. "Your family will never accept me," she whispered. "I'm black, I'm American, I'm nobody in your world." Min-Jun pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "My world is hell, Amara. You're the only heaven I've ever known." His lips found hers, desperate and claiming. The kiss tasted like violence and promises, like a future that would probably destroy them both. When they pulled apart, his phone buzzed. His expression hardened as he read the message. "What is it?" "My father knows about us." Min-Jun's voice was flat. "He's calling a family meeting, tomorrow night." Amara's stomach dropped. She'd heard stories about Min-Jun's father, the ruthless patriarch who'd built an empire on bones and betrayal. "What does that mean for us?" Min-Jun holstered his gun and took her hand. "It means tomorrow, you meet the family, and we find out if our dangerous devotion is strong enough to survive." The Kang family estate sat on the outskirts of Seoul like a fortress, all traditional architecture hiding modern security systems and enough armed guards to start a small war. Amara's hands trembled as Min-Jun's car pulled through the gates. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a black dress, elegant but modest, her natural hair pulled back. She wanted to look confident. She felt like she was walking to her execution. "Breathe," Min-Jun murmured, his hand finding hers. "I won't let anyone hurt you." "Can you promise that?" She turned to face him. "Your father runs this organization. What happens if he orders you to?" "I'd burn this entire empire to the ground before I let anyone touch you." His eyes blazed with certainty that both thrilled and terrified her. Inside, the house was immaculate, all dark wood and carefully placed antiques. Min-Jun's mother, elegant and cold as ice sculpture, barely glanced at Amara. His younger sister, Jae-woo, stared with open curiosity, but it was his father, Kang, who commanded the room. He sat at the head of a long table, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, radiating the kind of power that came from decades of violence. When his gaze landed on Amara, she felt dissected. "So," he said in Korean, which Min-Jun quietly translated, "this is the woman who's made my son forget his duties." "Father, with respect," Min-Jun started. "I'm speaking." The old man's voice cracked like a whip. He switched to English, heavily accented but clear. "Miss Washington, you understand my son is engaged to marry the daughter of our allied family. This arrangement secures our organization's future." Amara felt the room tilt. Engaged. Min-Jun's face went pale. "That arrangement was made when I was 16. I never agreed." "You don't get to disagree." Young stood, his presence filling the space. "You are my heir. Your personal desires are irrelevant." "Then I refuse the position." Min-Jun's words dropped like bombs. "I won't marry her. I won't sacrifice Amara for politics." The silence was deafening. Jae-woo gasped. Their mother's teacup clattered against its saucer. Young moved with frightening speed, grabbing a knife from the table and pressing it to Amara's throat before anyone could react. Min-Jun's gun was out instantly, aimed at his own father. "You'd point a weapon at me." Young's voice was deadly calm. "For her." "I'd kill you for her." Min-Jun's hand didn't shake. "And we both know I'm faster than your guards." Time crystallized. Amara could feel her pulse against the blade's edge, could see the terrible choice playing out in Min-Jun's eyes. This was the moment where love met loyalty, where devotion became dangerous. Then Jae-woo spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. "Father, think. If you kill her, you lose Min-Jun forever. He'll either die trying to protect her or spend his life destroying everything you built. Is pride worth your legacy?" The old man's eyes flickered. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered the knife. "You have 1 month," he told Min-Jun, "handle the rival families. Secure our position without the marriage alliance. Prove she's worth more than our carefully laid plans. If you fail, she leaves Korea. Forever." Min-Jun lowered his gun. "And if I succeed?" "Then perhaps your dangerous devotion will have earned its place in this family." Young walked away, leaving the knife on the table, a reminder of how close death had come. Outside, in Min-Jun's car, Amara finally broke. Sobs racked her body as the terror and adrenaline crashed over her. Min-Jun pulled her close, his own hands shaking now. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I should have told you about the engagement. I should have." 1 month, she interrupted, pulling back to look at him. "Can we really do this?" Min-Jun cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away her tears. "I don't know, but I know I'd rather die trying than live without you." They kissed in the darkness, two people from different worlds bound by something stronger than logic, safer than sanity. Their dangerous devotion had 1 month to prove it could survive in the light. Outside the car, Seoul glittered with possibility and threat. The clock was ticking, and somewhere in the shadows, enemies were already making their moves. The first week of their deadline passed in a blur of violence and strategy. Min-Jun moved like a man possessed, dismantling rival operations with surgical precision. Amara watched from the shadows of his world, learning the brutal mathematics of survival. Every enemy he eliminated, every alliance he forged, was a step toward their impossible future. But it was the 8th night that changed everything. Amara woke to find Min-Jun's side of the bed empty. She found him on the penthouse balcony, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring at the Seoul skyline like it held answers he couldn't find. "Can't sleep?" she asked, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders against the October chill. "I killed 4 men today." His voice was hollow. "One of them had a daughter. I saw her picture in his wallet." He finally turned to look at her, and the anguish in his eyes made her chest ache. "What kind of man am I, Amara? What kind of future can I give you built on so much blood? She moved to stand beside him, their shoulders touching. You think I don't know who you are? I've known since that first night. You're a killer, Min-Jun, but you're also the man who brings me coffee every morning exactly how I like it. Who learned to braid my hair by watching YouTube videos. Who reads me Korean poetry at midnight because you want me to understand your language, your soul. Those things don't erase what I've done. No, she agreed quietly. But they matter, you matter. And if we're going to survive this, you can't carry that guilt alone anymore. We carry it together. Min-Jun set down his glass and pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the only solid thing in his shifting world. I don't deserve you. Probably not, she said against his chest, but you're stuck with me anyway. The moment shattered with the buzz of Min-Jun's phone. His second in command, Yi-sung, flashed on the screen. Min-Jun answered in rapid Korean, his body going rigid with each word. What is it? Amara asked when he hung up. Lee Sang-uk. Min-Jun's expression turned to stone. The head of the Lee family just made his move. He's kidnapped Jaiwoo. Horror flooded through Amara. Your sister, why would he? Leverage. He wants me to hand over our northern territories and... Min-Jun's jaw clenched. He knows about my father's ultimatum. If I can't protect my own family, I prove you're a weakness they can exploit. Amara's mind raced. Then we give him what he wants. Absolutely not. Listen to me. She grabbed his arms, forcing him to focus. We give him me, but not really, it's a trap. You know I'm the bait he can't resist. You're talking about making yourself a target. These men will torture you, Amara. They'll. I trust you to get me out. Her voice was steady even as her heart hammered. This is how we prove to your father that I'm not just some weakness. I'm an asset, a partner. We save Jaiwoo and take down the Lee family in one move. Min-Jun looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. 3 months ago, the idea of volunteering to be kidnapped by a Korean crime family would have sent her running. Now, she understood the rules of this dangerous game. Sometimes love meant walking into fire and trusting the person you loved to pull you out. I can't risk you like this, Min-Jun said, but she could see the strategy already forming behind his eyes. You don't have a choice. Your sister's life is on the line. Your family's testing you. And we have 3 weeks left to prove we can survive in this world together. She took his face in her hands. So let's show them exactly how dangerous our devotion can be. 2 days later, Amara stood in an abandoned factory in Incheon, hands zip-tied behind her back, facing Lee Sang-uk. He was older than Min-Jun's father, with scars crossing his face like a roadmap of violence. Jaiwoo sat bound to a chair nearby, blood dried at the corner of her mouth but eyes defiant. The American girl, Lee Sang-uk circled Amara like a predator. You don't look like much, yet you've made the Kang heir lose his mind. He grabbed her chin roughly. What's your secret? What do you do that's worth starting a war over? Amara met his gaze without flinching. I make him human. That's what terrifies you, isn't it? A Min-Jun who fights for something other than power is unpredictable, dangerous. The slap came hard enough to snap her head sideways, copper flooding her mouth. But she smiled through the blood. He's coming for us, she said, and you just made it personal. Lee Sang-uk laughed. Let him come. I have 50 men in this building. Even the great Kang Min-Jun can't. The lights went out. Gunfire erupted in the darkness, controlled, precise shots that spoke of military training. Amara dropped to the floor as chaos exploded around her. She felt hands on her wrists, zip ties being cut. Min-Jun's voice in her ear. Stay down. Then he was gone, moving through the darkness like death itself. Amara crawled toward Jaiwoo, found her in the blackness, freed her hands. The younger woman gripped Amara's arm. He brought 20 men. They cut the power grid for 6 blocks. My brother planned this like a military operation. For us, Amara whispered. He did this for us. When the emergency lights flickered on, it was over. Lee Sang-uk knelt in the center of the room, surrounded by his dead guards, Min-Jun's gun pressed to his temple. Min-Jun's men secured the perimeter while Yi-sung helped Jaiwoo to her feet. But Min-Jun's eyes found Amara, scanning her for injuries. The split lip, the bruise forming on her cheek, she watched something savage and protective flash across his face. "You hit her," Min-Jun said quietly to Lee Sang-uk. "Min-Jun, don't," Amara started, but he cut her off. "No one touches what's mine." The gun fired once. Lee Sang-uk's body crumpled. The drive back was silent. Jae-woo had been rushed to the family doctor. Min-Jun's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. When they reached the penthouse, he finally exploded. "You could have died. He could have done so much worse before I got there." "But he didn't, because you came for us, because we trusted each other." Amara moved to stand in front of him. "Your sister is safe. The Lee family is broken. We just proved to everyone that I'm not your weakness, I'm your strength." Min-Jun pulled her against him roughly, his hands tangling in her hair. "If anything had happened to you—" "It didn't." She kissed him, tasting desperation and relief. "We're okay, we're together, and we just won." His phone rang, his father's name on the screen. Min-Jun answered, switching to speakerphone. "You saved your sister," De-young's voice came through. "Using the American as bait was reckless, also brilliant. The other families are already reaching out, wanting to avoid the same fate as the Lees. Then you acknowledge Amara's value to this family." A long pause. "I acknowledge that perhaps I underestimated her. And you, the engagement is dissolved. You have 2 more weeks to secure our position fully. Don't waste them." The line went dead. Min-Jun and Amara stood in the silence, hardly daring to believe it. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually—" Min-Jun kissed her, deep and claiming, a promise of all the dangerous tomorrows they'd fight for together. Their devotion had drawn blood and survived fire. Now they just had to make it last forever. To be continued.